Welcome to the Accelerating Operational Performance podcast. I'm Greg Schinkel, President of Unique Training and Development and Frontline Leadership Systems, and I'm really excited about our guest today. Before I introduce you to her, let me first say that one of the things that we're featuring right now in our program is the new Plant Manager Excellence program. And it's been interesting to me because a lot of media interest has come for this program. And I've been talking to various media outlets about, do engineers make better plant managers? Do people who come up through operations and production make better plant managers? How do people become great plant managers? And so if that's something that interests you or your organization, please remember to check it out. And of course, you can always talk to us about our Frontline Leadership Program as well, and you can do that at uniquedevelopment.com. Now, I'm excited to introduce our guest today, who's actually a member of our Unique Training and Development and Frontline Leadership Systems faculty, one of our instructors. I think many of you will know by now that in addition to Kirk Langford and myself, who do teach some of our programs, most of our instructors have their own consulting practices that are thriving, and we come together and we partner on different programs. And so this person was recommended to me by someone who is very instrumental in the industry in terms of identifying talent, in terms of speakers and trainers. So my guest today is Amelia Mimi Brown. So she goes by Mimi. She is a dynamic communication consultant, trainer, and speaker with over 15 years of experience helping individuals and organizations transform the way that they communicate, lead, and perform. Her transformative vision resonates globally, and she is celebrated for her captivating stage presence, combining humor and invaluable insights. And I will say that having taught with Mimi recently, the crowd just loves her. They love her more than me, and you know, what can I do about that? She's a prolific author of a trilogy of books on leadership and communication, including her newest book, which we'll talk about in a moment. She's a recognized media personality. She told me she's not quite in this age band right now, but she was one of Michigan's elite 40 under 40 and was named Best Speaker of 2020 by Michigan Meetings and Events magazine. Whether she's working with emerging leaders or seasoned executives, Mimi's mission is the same: move people to new professional heights. Mimi, welcome to the Accelerating Operational Performance podcast.
Thank you, Greg. And my mother would be so happy about that introduction, right?
Yes, well, you could just take that clip when it comes out on the social media and share it with her. And Mimi's website, in case somebody needs to reach her, is ampupsuccess.com. That's amp as in amplifier, ampupsuccess.com. So Mimi, first of all, let's not keep the audience waiting. Hold up the book cover for your newest book, just recently released. It's called Lead at Full Volume, The 10 Beats to Amplify Your Confidence, Influence, and Presence. So we're going to get to that. I'm going to ask you more about your new book. But first thing, I think people are always interested. How do people go from being, working in a corporate job, somewhat 9 to 5, how do they eventually go and do the thing that, one of our activities, Mimi, as you know, is phobias. We do a little phobias activity, and still like number 3 on the list is speaking in public is one of the biggest fears that people have. How did you make that journey from being a corporate insider to being a world-class speaker and trainer?
Well, I often like to say that I was born this way. I came out the womb communicating. Some people call it crying. I call it communicating. But I've actually loved speaking, and I was always like the odd person who enjoyed being in front of a room. And when I was in high school, I was in forensics, and not in the creepy forensics files, but as in forensics, as in public speaking forensics and competitions. And my parents are still amazed to this day that people pay me to talk. As my dad would say, I'd pay you to shut up. But it started, I was a leadership trainer. So when I transitioned in the corporate world, had the knack for just connecting with people from the front of the room. And I was a leadership trainer for one of the largest utilities in the state of Michigan, and just kept going with that. And so had my one foot in corporate and then one foot in the speaking world, so to speak. And transitioned and have been doing it ever since.
Yeah, no, it's not an easy transition. I mean, a lot of folks do get their first sort of taste of it being an internal trainer. And honestly, that's how my dad ended up starting this company. He was at General Motors, he was internal, he was putting together programs, he saw the opportunity. In fact, I would say that that's happening a little less these days. So you're not in as large a company, and I just mean that by association, as it used to be. There were a lot of people that came out of big companies in their learning and development teams, and then went and hung their own shingle and started practices. So kudos to you for making that. It is, as you know, it is a big leap. And it was funny to me that you were named, one of the top speakers in 2020, because that was when basically speaking shut down.
Isn't it ironic too?
And it sounds like your teachers were the same as mine, that one of the things you saw on your report card was she talks too much. And that turned out to be a tremendous advantage to the industry that you're in, right?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Okay. Well, first, why don't we, because the new book is out, hold that up again. Again, it's Lead at Full Volume, the 10 Beats to Amplify Your Confidence, Influence, and Presence. What is it that prompted you to write that book, and what is the essence of it, in case people might want to pick up a copy?
So when I was in corporate, I remember walking into my supervisor's office, and for the purposes of the story, we'll call him Bill, because that's his name. And I walked in, and I was ready to move to a leadership role. And he told me, "Oh, I've been around a long time, Mimi. You're not ready. You're too much. And I've been at this company 33 years, and I knew what it." He said, "I know what it takes." And so he took all the wind out of my sail, and I went back and I sat in the car and decided to give myself a half day that day vacation. But I called one of my mentors, Chris, and Chris reminded me of who I was, because I asked her, I said, "Chris, how do I tone this down?" And she said, "Well, Mimi, you don't tone down who you are, you turn it up."
Yeah.
And apparently they don't appreciate or they can't fully appreciate for who you are. And so maybe you need to do something different. And that gave me the permission to step out and be a full-time speaker. And it was interesting because I didn't want anyone else to have that experience. So I started studying like influence and communication and confidence and what it took. And that's how the beats came together. Yeah. Interestingly enough, I've been a DJ since I was 16. So I married two of my loves together, which is leadership, but also music, and had the integration of the two for Lead at Full Volume.
All right. Well, that's awesome. So you're basically encouraging other people to also turn up the things that make them so distinctive. And I think there's a great leadership lesson both on the downside and the upside of the advice you got, right? The first advice was sort of what not to do as a leader, because I think leaders probably, I'm not saying you have to always encourage everyone all the time, because sometimes people need more direct feedback. But I think when you tell people like the way you are is not going to make you successful, that's an indictment that it's tough. You have to have a lot of strength to discard that and pivot from it. And I know Chris, who you're talking about, because she was famous within our industry. And the fact that she told you, no, you actually got to crank it up. I'm glad that you're spreading that message to other people as well.
Yeah, I think it's important, and it's part of this balance of being authentic. Because I think authenticity is important. It definitely has to be, we'll say, massaged a little bit for the environment that you're in. But and I don't even fault Bill for the advice that he gave me or his perspective, because he saw me through a certain lens, yeah, but he didn't see my potential. And thank goodness I didn't listen to him, because I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing
Exactly, today. Exactly. So tell us about this framework you have, the Own Your Swag framework. How does that work?
Yeah, so really this book started from that initial keynote, which interestingly enough was one point in a keynote when I first started around this concept of owning your swag. And swag is short for swagger. And swagger is the way we walk, we talk, we carry ourselves. And so I took it a step further after just kind of like learning and watching and talking with some of my clients and coaching folks that your swag is the courage and confidence to unapologetically and authentically be who you are. And there are 3 steps to owning your swag. First is to clarify your confidence, like getting clear on who you are and what you bring to the table. And so I give people a swag inventory, which is taking inventory of what makes you great. And the question I ask a lot of my clients, but also in my keynotes, is when was the last time you took inventory of what makes you amazing? And usually you can hear the silence in the room because we don't. We focus on what we don't do well. Right. And actually the research supports that when you lean into your strengths, you lean into your wisdom, you lean into the activities that put you in the flow and then your natural gifts, you're more likely to be engaged. You're going to be happier at work. And so not only do I encourage people to do this personally, but I also encourage leaders. What are the things that your folks on your team, what are their strengths? And are they aware of them? Are you helping them leverage that? What wisdom do they have? What do they bring to the table that's even outside of education, but experiences, civic organizations? My favorite is times when you failed and something you learned from. The A is activities that put you in a flow. So what are the things that get you going? I often like to joke that when I'm by myself, that feels like I'm on punishment. But when I'm in front of a room, that's when I know I'm in flow and I'm on fire. And then gifts. So what are your natural talents and gifts?
Awesome.
And so the first step is clarify your confidence. We do the swag inventory. Next is to, you would think I know my own framework. So clarify your confidence. The next is communicate your value. And your value is more than your title. I'm director of so-and-so.
Yes.
I'm the plant manager over so-and-so. No, that's a title. That doesn't tell me the results you get.
Right.
So we talk through what does it really mean to communicate what the end result that you get for folks. And then lastly is how to connect authentically. So now that I'm clear on what I bring to the table, how do I communicate that? Then how do I put it out in the world so that other people can benefit from it?
Yeah, no, I mean, first of all, great framework, and you obviously that's living your truth and getting other people to admit it. And having just again having worked with Mimi on a course recently, I just see how the group warms up to you and they connect with you so well. And the tough thing in our business is it's tough to articulate why is it that you resonate well with groups. But in your case, you're basically just living your framework over and over again, and you're encouraging others to do that too. So I'm curious, Mimi. You started off doing training inside the corporation. You still do training for our clients and others. I'm wondering though, what was it about the keynoting experience, and what was your journey like in terms of becoming a keynoter?
Yeah, so I give a lot of credit to the National Speakers Association on how I learned the keynoting side and more specifically like the business side of what I do. But I remember my very first keynote and I bombed it. And interestingly enough, someone in our industry who is very well known, his name is Eric Thomas. He's known as like ET. And I mean, he's known worldwide. And he gave me, Greg, my first experience keynoting. So I was a student at Michigan State University. I think I made $100 from this event,
Yeah.
and I was speaking at this church, and I was like pontificating, and it was terrible. I didn't understand like cadence. It was like a Baptist preacher on the wrong side. It was terrible.
Yeah.
And I learned then the value of storytelling and connecting with your audience, and like I use adult learning principles even within the keynote experience. And so for me, it's where I know that typically a keynote is not going to be life changing, but my goal is to spark you to take action on something, to get you to think differently about something, and then hopefully, like I said, to take action on it and move forward with it.
Yeah, you're a busy keynoter. I know when we're trying to line up dates for our clients with you, it's usually you've got a keynote somewhere in the country, so you're on airplanes. And again, we're talking to Mimi Brown. Her actual name is Amelia, but she goes by Mimi Brown, and you can reach her at ampupsuccess.com. So you kind of answered this next question I had for you, which is, how did you learn from something that didn't go well, and what did you take away from it? So I don't know if it's the same story or whether you want to articulate something else.
Oh, I got a whole slew of them. I mean, I'll just kind of piggyback off that one because it's what comes to mind. This is when it's so important to have mentors in your life, and to have people that will be what I call your truth tellers. Because we'll go around thinking we're doing things great, but until you have somebody in your life and in your experience who will go, let's pause for a little bit, let's rethink that. So I surround myself with folks who are experts in their own rights in different arenas to help me grow and be the best version of myself. And I think that's the most important lesson is either you win or you learn.
That's
and
right.
Which one do you decide to lean into?
Yeah, if you're learning, you're burning, because you learn from all those. If you're good, you learn from both your successes and your mistakes. But it is important to realize that you're probably not as good as your highs and you're not as bad as your lows. And if you would just kind of learn from both, you could probably get consistently good and better as you go along. I'm curious, because you're such a good trainer, I've seen it firsthand, and our clients give you kudos, and you become the preference for many of our clients who work with you. What is your philosophy around leading effective workshops? Like, how did you get better at that over time? I know we're always looking for new angles and edges to get better, but you obviously developed some of those adult learning principles and mixes in there. So what is your philosophy for the workshop and how do you go about it?
Well, twofold. I have one that's a little flippant, but I really believe in it, which is the mind can only take in what the butt can endure.
Yes.
So, meaning like I've seen trainers get in front of the room and they make it about them, like they're the sage on the stage instead of being the guide on the side. And what I know is people learn not by listening, but by doing. And it's important to appeal to the different learning styles in the room. I remember when I was a sophomore in college at MSU and I was failing my math class, like bombing it. And I was sitting in this side room in my dorm with this big whiteboard. And for whatever reason, I don't know what came over me. I just started writing all of the math problems on the board and talking them out loud, and it started to click. And so you would see me in my math class, and I had to like warn my instructor, I'm not cheating, I'm just learning in my own way. But I had to give myself permission that I learned differently than other people. So I take that same philosophy in the classroom and I do my best to appeal to all different learning styles. So I ensure that we're up moving. I get people involved. I also give them quiet reflection time. I know all of those aspects of learning make it just easier. And then my other thing is I make it fun. Like sometimes people think fun is a bad word, but when people are laughing, they're learning, and when they're letting their guard down, they're engaged. And so I try to meet people where they are and then bring them along their journey.
Awesome. No, that's great. And I've seen it firsthand. And I picked up a number of things from you because I had to deliver the same program that you and I were delivering together. And it really worked with that crowd too. So I appreciate that. That being said, one of the things, and you and I were talking before we went on the air, that not every group gives you everything you're looking for. And I just wondered what some of the challenging things that you've seen in the classroom and kind of how do you get your way through those challenges in the classroom?
Well, most recently, like you said, we were discussing this before we went on air, is I had a group that was super low energy. I definitely said we're more reflective folks, more introverted folks in the room. And so with them, I have to meet them where they are and then work to bring the energy up and ensuring that I'm paying attention individually to folks. So I might encourage people like as a side conversation, like during a break, hey, I really appreciate when you brought that insight forward. Would you continue to do that? Or I really look at you as someone who's a leader in the group. And so if I could get your help and assistance with getting people participating, and then just adjusting on the fly, like everything doesn't work for everyone. And so like I had this activity, I'm very much about energy, and Greg, you know this, like infusing music into what I do because of my background as a DJ. And so we did this game or this icebreaker called Pass the Energy, just to get the energy up. No one would participate.
Oh no.
So I had like a few little dance moves going on, and I was like, pass the energy, and they're looking at me like I had two heads. And so I just shifted a little bit, and once I knew it wasn't working for the group, I said, okay, I need to try something different. So just being willing to adjust. And I never make it about me. It's always about the audience. And even when we do an activity, it's purposeful. So it's connected to the content. It isn't something just because it's fun, but how do I make sure that it's integrated? Because adults will participate when they can see the purpose and how it's connected to the content.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. And because I think a lot of people who start out, they love their games or their things, but they forget that it needs to make sense, because adults will do things that are fun, but they don't necessarily like to do them if they're either silly or embarrassing unless there's some reason for it. But yeah, I noticed that you're good about your energy and shifting the energy. And that's important because the audiences that we collaborate on developing are often frontline. They're either frontline workers in manufacturing or operations, or they are the supervisors of those people or the team leads of those people. And they're not used to sitting in a classroom for very long. So I noticed that you seldom have them without something to do for more than 7 or 8 minutes before they're on to something else. So the variety is important to keep them moving.
It's about changing the dyad, right? So it can't be, once again, trainers getting stuck in this rut of I have to be the one that has all the knowledge in the room and the one doing the talking. I
Right.
actually learned this when I attended a training many years ago. I trained the trainer, which is the person doing the talking is the person doing the learning. And so if I
Ah,
give them more opportunity to add in their insight, then I make them the heroes of their own journey. And adults want a problem to solve. They don't want it to always be like, readily that solution in the
right.
moment. And so how do I meet them halfway with that?
Yeah, yeah. No, it's a good point. I'm wondering. I mean, maybe this is duplicating what we've been talking about. I just wondered. You'll have projects that go like really well. And that could be a keynote or a training program, and then you've
Mhm.
probably had ones that just seem to go less well. And I just wondered, can you put your finger on it? And even maybe like, how does the organizer behind the scenes contribute to it being a success? Or, some things that you've just observed that make some projects go better than others.
Yeah, so for me, it's really important to do my audience analysis ahead of time and to make sure that I am tailoring the experience to the group. So I'm learning their terminology. I interview people ahead of time because I want to get a feel. I'll ask the organizer, are they a group that will participate in the past? I love to ask the question, what's worked previously, what didn't work, and why. And I think from the organizer standpoint, we talk about some of the dynamics in the room, which people don't typically give a whole lot of thought to, but can make a huge difference in either participation or engagement from the audience. And one is the room setup. So when you look at a room, do you have, like I rarely speak behind a podium.
Yeah.
So that way it's a block to the audience. So I can be front facing with them where there's no barrier to the connection. The other is just the setup of the room itself. Are we in rounds? Or is it going to be classroom style? Where does the energy go out? What's happening before and after I speak, or even from a training standpoint, where I know the energy? Like, Greg, you know this about me from a training standpoint. And I tell my classes this at the very beginning, I don't come between people and food.
Yeah.
When we look at Maslow's hierarchy of need, and self-actualization is at the top,
Yeah.
and food and shelter is at the
Yeah. The
bottom,
basics.
people are going to stop listening if they're hungry.
Yeah. For sure they are. For sure they are.
Can
So
we
those are,
talk about that? Like
yeah.
even something as simple as like them bringing food into the room before we're done.
Yeah.
They're not paying attention. Their little
No.
noses are being like, "Hello,
Yeah.
the subs just made it here."
Yeah,
So
you got it. You got it. No, I agree with you. So it's really, I guess what people could take from that is when you're organizing an event, just make sure that all those pieces kind of flow. Mimi mentioned that she is still very active in the National Speakers Association. I was a long-term member in the sister organization called CAPS, which is the Canadian Association of Professional Speakers. Recently retired from that, but it's a great community, and I know that folks who are in that understand that there are a lot of elements that go into it. Even as you're getting ready to go to the NSA Influence event, and the ones that feel better or different from others are where there is this emotional flow to it. And people in corporate training don't think of it has an emotional flow, but it does. There needs to be elements of joy, excitement. There needs to be contemplation. There needs to be reflection, and it's really managing all of that and not making it, I guess, a rut or a routine where we always just go from PowerPoint slide to flip chart activity, and we do it the same way all the time, because adults get bored and their brains shut down. So thank you for bringing that up. And I just wondered, what we're trying to solve, Mimi, you and I in general, is just how do we affect performance? So how do we actually affect outcomes? And I was just curious what your thoughts are in terms of how do we connect, delivering these messages and these training programs and these keynote speeches to actually affecting the outcomes that the companies are really looking at in terms of measurables. What do you think?
well, yeah, I know ROI from training is a big thing, and people don't trying to find the connection between what we're doing in a classroom and how it actually shows up in a performance environment can be challenging. But one of the things I think it's important is how am I reinforcing the learning that's happening and being intentional about that. So yeah, we spent, I often one of my monikers that I say in class is it's great what we did over the last day or two, but what really makes a difference are the actions you're going to take as a result of this training. And so I know I talk to my clients about how do we reinforce that learning, whether it's, I know in our working with you, Greg, we have the leader behavior builder, right? So that commitment that they have every week, and it's a daily reminder that they're getting because it's staying in front of them. When I typically hold up the participant guide and I say, don't let this be the only time you're opening this book, but we're intentional about after every module, giving them time to reflect on what do I want to take action on, what resonated with me, and making the time to be intentional. I know some of the learning research says if people don't use something within the first 30 days, they lose it. I think it's actually less than that.
Yeah.
Like, how do I be intentional within 3 or 4 days and making sure that I'm going back to revisit it and making time on my calendar, especially from like the leadership skill sets that we're teaching. These aren't easy things, but when I'm having a conflict or a challenge or a tough conversation or having to give someone feedback, can I go back and apply the things that I've learned in the session and being intentional about connecting the dots?
Yeah. Well, so again, it's just been an honor for me to work with you. I know having you on our team, many of our clients, they love you. I saw you win over a group in the oil patch, rough and ready kind of guys, and they responded to you. You and I were in the heartland of America, and these folks who came out of mostly factory environments, they resonated with you. One of the questions, we've covered a lot of ground today, and I just wondered, is there something else that you wanted to share with our audience before we wrap up?
Yeah, Greg, it's something I actually learned from Oprah, my friend Oprah. I don't have her cell phone number yet, but we're getting there. But I did meet Oprah a few years ago. And at the end of this talk that she said, after every person she's ever interviewed over the course of her career, whether they're a celebrity or they were just normal folks like you and I, they would lean in and ask, how did I do? What do you think? How did that go? And she said she took that to mean that no matter your status or your stature in this world, that every single person wants to feel seen, heard, and acknowledged. And I think at the core of who we are, that's what we're asking for.
Yeah.
And so whether you're a CEO of an organization, you're a frontline leader, or you're an individual contributor, you don't have to be a billion-dollar mogul like Oprah to make someone feel seen or heard or acknowledged. Yeah. You get to do that every day by being present with folks. And I think that goes a long way in this world, and that's something that it's a gift that we can give to people.
Yes. Well, Mimi, you're living it. You're living it out loud. And so I just wanted to say thank you. Thank you on behalf of our audience for sharing that with us. Again, we've been talking with Mimi Brown. Her website is ampupsuccess.com, and you can certainly reach out to her in that way. Or, of course, if you just think, hey, having Mimi lead a leadership workshop in our organization would be great, of course, you can connect with her through us as well at uniquedevelopment.com. So, Mimi, thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Thank you, Greg, and thanks for the opportunity.
Yeah. So, and for our audience, first of all, thank you for giving us probably one of your most precious resources, which is your time and your attention. And how many people discover podcasts is they have them forwarded, an episode forwarded to them, which you can do through the various channels that you use. Or, of course, if you want to really do us a favor, you can go and rate the podcast wherever your platform is. Share, like, and subscribe. And our mission here really is to help you on your leadership journey. Whether it's making work go better or your life go better or your career progress a little bit more than what you'd see right now, that's what we're here to and what we exist to do. Our overall mission, by the way, is to see if we can make it a world where no one has to work for a bad boss. And that is a tall order in our mission. So if we can be of any assistance to you or your organization, of course, it all starts with a conversation at uniquedevelopment.com. For now, I'll just say best wishes for your leadership journey.